Hello and welcome to the Bulls on Parade Talk, providing Houston Texans coverage 365 days a year to all the sports fans out there. I'm your host Joshua Sines, and we come to it at last. One of the most anticipated games on the Houston Texans schedule. The Battle of Texas, Texas Civil War, or whatever it's being called. The Dallas Cowboys are going to be entering this week with a lot of confidence after their blowout win against a struggling New Orleans Saints team. Houston is also feeling really good about themselves, especially after the hard-fought battle they had against the Buffalo Bills, which meant a lot to Ryan Fitzpatrick if you saw his speech. So with that all being said, let's take a look at what are the signs to victory for each team, starting with, of course, our very own Houston Texans. The Houston Texans need to take advantage of the Cowboys' lack of depth in the secondary. The way you can do so is by spreading out their defense using various spread formations from 3 to 5 wide receiver sets and making sure every receiver from even the fullback to the tight end gets a chance to touch the football. They can use this passing game to set up their zone run, which Dallas struggles at times to defend. On defense, the D-line and blitzers must stay in attack mode and not let that Cowboys offensive line have their way. While the front end applies the pressure, the Texans secondary needs to stay disciplined in their pass coverage. When feeling rushed, Tony Romo has a slight tendency to make bad decisions in the passing game. Overall, they need to take away the running game and make Dallas one-dimensional. The last thing is to stay in control of the penalty situations, especially on third downs. Whenever the defense gets a stop, committing a stupid penalty is a killer, so that needs to get cleaned up. Dallas, on the other hand, have been on a roll with their running game. DeMarco Murray has rushed for at least 100 yards every game so far. While the Texans held Fred Jackson and C.J. Spiller to under 100 yards rushing, they did struggle stopping Rashad Lewis in New York and Alfred Morris and Roy Halou Jr. against Washington. A big amount of the credit goes to the offensive line, which has become quite a strength for the Cowboys this year. So if they can keep running the football and provide Tony Romo time to throw, this offense can be very dangerous. And while on offense, the Cowboys need to take advantage of single high opportunities, especially when they leave guys like Terrence Williams or Dez Bryant on an island against Jonathan Joseph or Kareem Jackson. On defense, they need to plug up the gaps and not allow Alfred Blue and Arian Foster to hit those cutback lanes that Houston's offensive line is known for doing very well. Against the New Orleans Saints, Dallas showed signs of struggling to stop the cutback run by New Orleans running backs. Also, they need to be aware of Ryan Fitzpatrick's underrated mobility. Much like Tony Romo, Ryan Fitzpatrick has shown, especially this season, the ability to extend plays and scramble when needed. Dallas needs to keep Ryan Fitzpatrick in the pocket at all times and not let him scramble for big plays, especially on critical third and fourth downs. While the running game has been working for Dallas this year, there have been times where we've seen them struggle, particularly in their game against the Rams, where DeMarco Murray recorded the lowest number of rushing yards to date. St. Louis stayed in attack mode, set the edge, and hit DeMarco Murray and would not let go. In this play on 2nd and 10 early in the second quarter on their own 20-yard line in St. Louis, Dallas called a delayed handoff to the left. The setup was good as the center would pull around the guard after snapping the ball, and everyone else had to hold their initial block while Murray got the handoff. The issue was that Tyron Smith didn't get a good initial block on Robert Quinn, thus allowing him to get a free run at DeMarco Murray. Once he got that initial tackle, James Laurinaitis simply came up from the middle linebacker spot and finished the play in the backfield, resulting in a 2-yard loss. The tight ends are key in Bill O'Brien's offense. This play against the Buffalo Bills is a great example of a missed opportunity by C.J. Fedorovich to get a big play against Buffalo's zone coverage. The design is very simple, using the 12 personnel, which means 1 running back and 2 tight ends. It's a play-action pass while the 2 tight ends run streak routes down the field. Andre Johnson runs an underneath pattern, thus leaving DeAndre Hopkins to run a 10 to 15 yard flag pattern down the field. When the ball is snapped and Ryan Fitzpatrick finishes his drop back, the wide tight end, which is CJ Fedorovich, is left in a gap between 4 Bills defenders. Fedorovich just needs to catch the ball securely to keep the drive going. Unfortunately, the pass was dropped at that time, and the Texans were forced into a 3rd down because of that drop. For Dallas, I picked their left tackle Tyron Smith as my X factor simply because he is going to be asked to block J.J. Watt on the left side of the offensive formation. At times, he struggled against Robert Quinn, who, like Tyron Smith and J.J. Watt, were also a top pick in the 2011 NFL Draft. So the left side of the offensive line is going to have quite a task in terms of blocking not only J.J. Watt, but also Brooks Reed on that side. For the Texans, I went with their 2 starting tight ends, Garrett Graham and C.J. Fedorovich. The Cowboys in their first 4 games of the season have struggled to defend the tight ends. In their game against the Tennessee Titans, Delaney Walker had 10 catches for 142 yards receiving. Jared Cook of the St. Louis Rams had 7 catches for 77 yards receiving. And most recently, Jimmy Graham had 8 catches for 86 yards. The one thing those gentlemen have in common is that when they matched up against the Cowboys, they led their respective teams in catches and receiving yards. So I definitely will look at how Bill O'Brien will get his 2 very talented tight ends going so they can have a field day of their own against Dallas's defense over the middle. The main sign I'll be looking out for in this game will be the turnover battle. Both quarterbacks have a history of making costly turnovers, so I'll be keeping my eye on the quarterbacks and how they manage the game and stay in control of the offense. Also, the unwarranted penalties such as illegal contact, pass interference, false starts, etc. will be something to look at and see if it has been cleaned up from last week to this week. Discipline and execution are the main keys to success for both teams. Call me biased if you want, but I feel the Texans are going to win simply because I don't trust the Cowboys right now and their ability to handle success. The biggest question for Dallas has never been about their talent. It's always been about the way they handle success and how they execute down the stretch. Although it is early in the season, consistency is key for any team throughout the long 16-game season. So I feel the Texans have more depth and better coaching, especially defensively, to hold off Dallas and get their 4th win of the season. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. For the most part, it should be a very exciting game. I mean, anytime that Houston and Dallas play each other, it always makes for an exciting football game. Just keep this in mind, though. Houston's defense is nowhere as bad as the New Orleans Saints defense that Dallas faced on Sunday night. So the challenge might be bigger than Dallas might realize, but we shall see what happens on game day. Do you think the Dallas Cowboys are coming into this game feeling a bit overconfident or cocky? Do you think the Texans are feeling a bit overconfident or cocky entering this matchup? Tell me what you think in the comment section below. If you enjoyed, leave a like on the video before you go. I always appreciate that. It's all the support that you guys provide. It's always fantastic. Be sure to keep up with the talk, speaking of support, by following me on Twitter at Bulls Parade Talk. Like the Bulls on Parade Talk Facebook page. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. And thank you, by the way, to those that have. Channel's still growing. I'm trying to get as much distribution as I can. As well as visiting my website as well, bullsonparadetalk.blogspot.com. Also stay tuned for the latest live episodes coming up on my podcast. Lots of good discussions on there. I'm trying to get that podcast to grow even further. Links for all that will be in the description below. I hope to see you on there if you're not already. In the meantime, this is your host Joshua Signs from Houston, home of the Houston Texans, saying so long and see you next time right here on the Bulls on Parade Talk. Hopefully after Houston whoops Dallas. Go Texans.